the sweltering summer of 1999, the town of Millstone, Arkansas, was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business. Yet that familiarity did nothing to stop a nightmare from unfolding. 5 children, all from different families but close friends, disappeared seemingly out of nowhere. They had spent the day playing along the outskirts of the town's historic church, a centuries-old stone building perched at the edge of the river. Parents expected them to return by dusk, as they always did, but night fell and the children never came home. Panic set in when search parties scoured the nearby woods, riverbanks, and empty streets, finding nothing but disturbed grass and faint, unidentifiable footprints. Rumors began circulating almost immediately. Some townsfolk whispered about a shadowy figure seen near the playground earlier that day, a man who vanished as quickly as he appeared. Others spoke of the church itself, claiming it had a dark history, stories of secret passages, unsolved deaths, and whispered warnings from the elderly about rooms that swallow the innocent. Authorities dismissed many of these tales as hysteria, but the unease lingered. Families clutched each other at night, unable to explain the sudden silence of the children's laughter that had once filled the town. Investigations were relentless but fruitless. Police canvassed the town, checked nearby highways, and even interviewed every known troublemaker in the county. Yet the trail went cold almost immediately. The local newspaper ran front-page stories for weeks, but each lead dissolved into nothingness. Families held on to fading hope, creating missing posters, hosting candlelight vigils, and pleading on local radio for any clue, anything that could point to their children. But as weeks turned to months, Millstone slowly sank into an uneasy quiet, and the 5 children became ghosts in the minds of those who loved them most, leaving a mystery that would haunt the town for decades. 26 years had passed, and the town of Millstone had almost erased the memory of the vanished children. The old church, once the center of the community, had fallen into decay, its windows boarded up, ivy crawling along the crumbling stone, and the doors long locked. Most of the townspeople avoided the place, whispering superstitious warnings about lingering spirits and dark secrets hidden within its walls. But in 2025, a team of renovation workers arrived, tasked with restoring the church to its former glory. The group was composed of local contractors and volunteers, unaware of the town's haunting history. They approached the building with excitement and skepticism, expecting to deal with nothing more than dust, mold, and old stonework. As the crew cleared debris from the basement area, they stumbled upon the church's baptism pool. The shallow stone basin had long been drained, but something about it drew immediate attention. One worker, sweeping dust from the edge, froze. Dark, smeared drag marks stretched across the floor, as if something or someone had been pulled from the pool toward a shadowy corner. The marks were fresh enough to catch the light under their flashlights, stark against the pale stone. A tense silence fell over the crew as each person realized they were looking at evidence of movement that no one could immediately explain. The initial excitement of discovery quickly gave way to fear. The drag marks were uneven, suggesting a struggle or resistance. Some were small, almost childlike, while others were wider, heavy, and deliberate. The team's foreman called the local authorities, who arrived cautiously, their presence adding an official weight to the eerie scene. Detectives photographed every inch of the floor, measuring and analyzing the markings. For the first time in over 2 decades, The cold case of the 5 vanished children had something tangible to investigate. Speculation spread like wildfire. Some suggested the drag marks were a coincidence, perhaps leftover debris shifted by renovations. Others, however, grew uneasy at the possibility that the church itself had been hiding secrets all these years. Local historians recalled old blueprints showing hidden passages beneath the baptism pool, passages long rumored to lead to sealed-off chambers. The notion that someone, or something, had used these secret corridors was enough to send chills down even the most skeptical detective's spine. As the night settled over Millstone, the church loomed like a silent sentinel, its walls holding secrets no one had yet uncovered. Detectives began mapping the drag marks, trying to trace where they ended. The marks seemed to lead toward a shadowed alcove where dust-covered stones hinted at a hidden entrance. Flashlights illuminated the floor, revealing subtle indentations, scratches, and depressions that spoke of long, forgotten movements. Every step closer to the alcove heightened the sense of dread. It was as if the building itself was warning them to stop, but curiosity drove them onward, with the drag marks pointing toward the shadowed alcove beneath the old baptism pool. The detectives felt a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. The hidden passage had been sealed for decades, and dust hung thick in the air, disturbed only by the careful movements of their boots. Flashlights cut narrow beams through the darkness, revealing jagged walls and cobwebs that seemed almost alive, swaying slightly as though something unseen had brushed past. Each creak of the old floorboards above them echoed like a warning, making the team question if they were truly alone in the forgotten underbelly of the church. The air grew colder as they descended, carrying with it the faint, lingering scent of damp earth and something metallic they couldn't identify. Every step into the passage felt heavier, as if the weight of decades of secrets pressed down on them. The walls bore scratches and scuff marks that were almost imperceptible at first, but closer inspection revealed the desperate attempts of small hands trying to claw their way out, or perhaps back into the light. The detectives exchanged tense glances, realizing that what had happened here so many years ago had left physical traces, hidden and preserved in the silence of the passage. One detective, holding a flashlight steady, spotted faint indentations in the stone floor, tiny depressions in perfect alignment, like the footprints of children. The team followed them carefully, every step measured, afraid of disturbing something that might be fragile, or worse, awakening something that had been waiting. Shadows danced along the walls, elongating and twisting in the beams of light, and for a moment, it felt as if the passage itself was watching them. The deeper they went, the narrower the corridor became, forcing them to move single file, their breathing echoing in the oppressive darkness. Whispers of the past seemed to rise from the very stones. The team's radios crackled with static, making it hard to communicate, and some felt an almost tangible sense of being followed, as if invisible eyes tracked their every movement. The silence was broken only by the occasional drip of water from unseen cracks, each drop sounding unnaturally loud. Detectives noted that the scratches along the walls became more frequent and frantic as they progressed, as if whatever or whoever had passed through had been terrified, desperate, and unwilling to be found. Finally, the passage bent sharply, revealing a faint outline of a doorway carved into the stone. Unlike the rest of the corridor, this section bore signs of disturbance more recent than the dust of decades. Stones shifted slightly, scratch marks fresh enough to make the hair on the back of their necks stand up. The detectives paused, weapons and flashlights ready, hearts pounding in unison. Beyond the doorway lay a chamber that had remained hidden for 26 years. The air was heavier here, thick with a sense of anticipation and dread, as if the building itself knew that the next step could change everything. As the detectives cautiously stepped through the doorway, the narrow passage opened into a small, dimly lit chamber. Their flashlights revealed walls covered in thick layers of dust and cobwebs, yet something about the room felt deliberately maintained. Lying across the cold stone floor were remnants of a time long past: tattered children's clothing, broken toys, and scattered pieces of what had once been colorful board games. Each item seemed frozen in time, untouched for decades, yet somehow placed with a meticulous care that made the scene even more disturbing. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, carrying a faint, metallic scent that hinted at dried blood long forgotten. Symbols etched deep into the walls caught the detective's attention next. Strange, circular patterns interspersed with sharp, jagged lines surrounded the room, their purpose and origin unknown. Some resembled letters, others looked more like crude depictions of human figures, almost ritualistic in nature. The deeper the team examined the chamber, the clearer it became that this was more than a hiding place. It had been a carefully constructed space, designed for something sinister. Faint scratches on the walls, combined with the placement of the children's belongings, suggested a timeline of movement, as if someone had used this chamber repeatedly to control or contain their victims. In the center of the room, a wooden table stood like an altar, its surface darkened with age. At first glance, it appeared abandoned, but closer inspection revealed faint stains, darkened and dried over decades, forming patterns that hinted at some ritualistic purpose. The detectives noted subtle depressions in the stone floor around the table, as if heavy objects had been dragged across it. Every corner of the chamber carried a story, a trace of struggle and fear, leaving the team to wonder how such a place had remained hidden for so long, and whether the events that had unfolded here were truly over. The detectives' eyes were drawn to a trapdoor in the center of the chamber, partially concealed beneath the thick layer of dust and debris. Its edges were worn, almost camouflaged against the stone floor, but subtle scratches and faded stains hinted that it had been used more recently than the rest of the chamber suggested. With trembling hands, one of the detectives pried it open, revealing a narrow tunnel descending even deeper into darkness. The air that escaped carried a cold, damp scent, mixed with something metallic and faintly sweet, an odor that made even the most seasoned officer's stomach churn. The light from their flashlights barely penetrated the abyss, and for a moment, the detectives felt as though unseen eyes were watching them from below. As they prepared to descend, strange, childlike whispers seemed to echo from the shadows of the tunnel, soft at first, then growing in intensity. The team froze, scanning the darkness with flashlights and weapons drawn. No one spoke. Every sound of breathing, every creak of old wood above them seemed amplified in the oppressive silence. The tunnel walls were uneven and slick, as if something heavy had been dragged along them repeatedly. Small handprints, pressed into the dust, appeared halfway down the descent, faint but unmistakable, reminding the detectives of the children who had vanished 26 years ago. Fear gnawed at their minds, but curiosity pushed them forward, deeper into a space that time had forgotten. At the base of the tunnel, the detectives discovered an even larger chamber, shrouded in near total darkness. Shapes in the shadows hinted at long, abandoned furniture, broken toys, and scattered personal items that had belonged to the missing children. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, and the faint, irregular pattern of stains on the floor suggested a horrifying story of movement, struggle, and fear. Every detail screamed that this was not just a storage space, not merely a secret hiding place, but the epicenter of something far darker, something that had been meticulously concealed for decades. The realization hit the team. Whatever had taken the children had left behind evidence that was both chilling and alive, whispering to them through the silent echoes of a long, buried terror. As the detectives stood in the shadowed chamber, the air seemed to thrum with an unnatural presence. The whispers grew louder, almost forming words. But before they could make sense of them, a sudden, cold gust of wind swept through the tunnel, extinguishing their flashlights. Panic set in, hearts racing, as the darkness pressed in from every side. Then, from the far corner of the room, a faint outline emerged, small, unmistakably human, yet impossibly pale and still. The detectives realized, with a shiver that ran down their spines, that the past had not been silent all these years, and whatever had taken the children may never truly be gone. The trapdoor slammed shut behind them with a deafening clang, as if the church itself was sealing its secrets once more. All they could do was stumble back into the faint light of the passage, shaken to their core, knowing that the truth they had uncovered was only part of the horror. The children's fate, the full story of what had happened in that hidden chamber, remained a mystery, one that would haunt the town, the detectives, and anyone who dared step into the shadows of the old church for the rest of their lives. And as the wind howled outside, carrying the echoes of forgotten screams, Millstone realized a terrifying truth. Some mysteries, no matter how long buried, are never truly silent, and some horrors refuse to stay hidden.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.